Let's return to our breaking news and go back to Ottawa, where Tamara, Lich and Barber have just been handed conditional sentences for their roles in the so-called Freedom Convoy. CTV's Katie Griffin is standing by for us. It's busy outside court right now. Katie, some interesting sentences handed down. Take us through some of the details.
Well, I can tell you when the sentences were read aloud in court, a lot of applause from people in the courtroom. A lot of supporters have come here. The courtroom was absolutely packed. Every bench was full. You can see a lot of people behind me. We are anticipating them to come out at some point. They're probably going to have to do a little bit of paperwork before they come out, but lots of people here waiting to greet them and applaud them, most likely. So again, Barber sentenced to an 18-month conditional sentence, 12 months of house arrest, and then 6 months will have to abide by a curfew, being in his home between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. And of course, with that, there are exceptions for him to go to work, for medical appointments, for dental appointments, things like that. Tamara, Lich, for her role, the judge saying that, they stood shoulder to shoulder, essentially, as leaders, even though Barber was convicted of an additional charge. Tamara, Lich also sentenced 18 months conditionally, so 15.5-month house arrest, followed by, 15.5 months total, because the judge took away some days that she had already spent in jail. So 15.5 months total for that when you subtract the time she already served. So 12 months of house arrest, and the remaining 3.5 months will be under curfew, the same time frame between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. They will both also have to do 100 hours of community service. And so this is perhaps the final criminal chapter in terms of this case for these two in relation to the Freedom Convoy that, of course, gridlocked the downtown core for several weeks in the winter of 2022. The judge saying that these two were the leaders, and while they also tried to work with the police and work with city officials to try to shrink the footprint of the protest, they didn't try to stop it. They didn't end it. And so their culpability is not absolved through that.
It's been a very polarizing case, right, Katie? We talked about the convoy, the so-called Freedom Convoy in and of itself for 3 years. I think Pat King came up as well. Another organizer came up during sentencing. And the judge did say she wanted to send a message with some of these sentencing, and that it wasn't just going to be the two of them walking free, essentially.
Right, and Pat King's actually here today, and the judge did say that this is perhaps a stiffer sentence than it would have been had it been a jail sentence. But to your point, to show the denunciation and the deterrence for anybody else thinking about having a role like this again. So a long time there was a scuffle earlier this morning between some of the supporters, some words exchanged inside the courtroom during a break, and outside the courtroom a few arguments breaking out, minor, not like the punches that were thrown with one person taken into custody earlier this morning. So certainly still tensions. There's also people who have come here to show their support for the citizens of Ottawa who felt that they were harassed and intimidated and weren't able to move for several weeks. Lots of people, and the judge referenced that, right? That this is part of this sentence is partly for the harm caused to the broader community, to the businesses that lost millions of dollars, to the residents who didn't feel safe. Some of them couldn't even get outside of their apartment buildings in the winter. Some people, we heard from organizations, could not get to food banks because there were thousands of people protesting, hundreds of big rig trucks, and that honking that continued for so long, for so many hours. And so the judge saying that this was an appropriate sentence, and the Crown wanted 7 and 8 years for Lich and Barber. The defense wanted an absolute discharge, which would have meant no jail time, no criminal record. The judge said both of those options would not have been fit or appropriate, and so she has imposed these conditional sentences on both Lich and Barber today.
Okay, very busy outside the Ottawa courthouse. CTV's Katie Griffin for us. Thanks, Katie, for this. Appreciate it.